Welcome to the Main Street Business Insight podcast,
featuring the stories of America's downtown and neighborhood entrepreneurs.
There's so much about being a Main Street business that is intertwined with what it means to be part of a community.
The impact that it has on creating jobs, occupying vacant storefronts, improving the quality of life, like this is a big deal.
What advice would you give to other Main Street businesses?
Investing in yourself is the most important thing that you can do.
What was that experience like for you to reach out and, learn from others?
Any entrepreneur getting into business, I highly recommend find the people that you trust that'll tell you the thing you may or may not want to hear when you need to hear it, and who will stand by you in helping to solve your challenges.
Hey everyone, welcome again to another episode of the Main Street Business Inside podcast. I'm Matt Wagner, Chief Innovation Officer at Main Street America and your host. And it's really great because we're actually at our conference in Philadelphia. For the last couple of years, in fact, I've tried to meet up with folks that are here, tell interesting stories, and we certainly have one today because I'm with Kirsten from Brookings, South Dakota, as you already know. And we're going to have a chance to talk really from an interesting angle, I think, of a director of a downtown revitalization program, but also one that knows small businesses very intimately as an owner herself. And so, as we always do with the show, we like to start with the journey, because the journey is really important. It's about the story. It's about sort of the personal impacts of being a business owner has on one's life, because this isn't transactional. This is about experience and about connection with people and with community. So Kirsten, welcome to the show. So great to have you here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start right away with the journey. Cliff Note version, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the business and how you came into ownership.
Yeah. So I grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is the largest community in Sioux Falls, and then went up to Brookings, which is about an hour north, to go to school, and ended up, falling into a full-time job, got married, bought a house, and suddenly, I guess we live in Brookings. And
welcome.
Yeah. Here we are. And I decided it was time for me to really actually figure out what this community is that I live in. And so the first place I went to was the farmer's market. And
good place to start.
Yeah. So went to the farmer's market, which now, side note, is kind of funny because now the farmer's market's under our umbrella. And so I run the farmer's market. So like my gateway drug to Brookings is now part of like my thing.
It's a good entry point.
Yeah. So went there, went and actually started to experience the downtown outside of, the regular bar I would go to. And I worked on campus and started to just kind of feel this friction between the job I was doing and the work I was doing, not really aligning with what I would like to be doing, where I was working for this big corporation, but local food and community was important to me. And so I took some time to really think about what it is that I'm interested in. I went to a 1 Million Cups meeting where we were talking about this particular meeting was a tour of our downtown alleyways and how those alleyways could be reactivated. Something could be going on there. And
just real quickly, 1 Million Cups, if you're not familiar, program that started, I think, out of the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City for aspiring entrepreneurs, but really to bring folks that are thinking about small business or entrepreneurship together. So pretty amazing in Brookings. That's very cool that they had a 1 Million Cups program.
Yeah, and we Brookings kind of took it and did its own thing with it because we're a community of about 25,000 people. And about
rebels.
Yeah, I know. And about half of those are students that go to South Dakota State University. And so we didn't quite have enough entrepreneurs to do the program as you're supposed to. So we did things like alleyway tour. So it was actually my first 1 Million Cups meeting that I went to was this tour of alleyways. And they finished with a panel of people that were talking about the work they were doing. And Deb Brown was there, who she was talking about this tour that she did in her downtown to get people to come visit these abandoned buildings and maybe think about putting a business there. So I'm sitting listening to this panel and listening. I'm like not entirely paying attention because I was just so inspired by how passionate the three people on that panel were about the work that they were doing. And I was like, I want to feel like them. I want to feel passion like they feel passion for the work that they're doing. Because right now at my job at the university, I was working in the catering department. I was like, I don't feel like that ever. And so I'm like dreaming up, you know, continuing that line of thought of what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Why do I feel this way? What is something that I could do that wouldn't make me feel this way? How do I feel passion like these people feel passion? And so I'm, you know, not paying attention to the three people on the panel and coming up with this idea of I should open a bakery. I want to have a small grocery store. I want to have a kitchenware store, you know, just.
But the interesting though, that the mind went straight to like self-employment, being a business owner, you know, in terms of, even though it was like a lot of different varieties of those ideas, but it was all centered on small business ownership.
Small business ownership and food. I really enjoy eating food. Therefore I have to enjoy, you know, like making food. So I went back to my job and, called in some of my coworkers, like, I have this crazy idea I want to talk through. Anybody want to get lunch? So I sat down with these coworkers and told them, hey, I want to start all these crazy businesses and blah, blah, blah. And one of them went with me after work to start walking around our downtown to see like what spaces are available. Like this is like a 5-hour-old idea, right?
This is 0 to 60.
It absolutely was. I went home after that and I was like, I have never felt like this before. I've never felt so excited about anything ever. And so I opened up my computer. I took a picture on my computer of me because I was like, something is happening here. So I could show you. I have a picture from 2014.
We need to put this on the podcast notes.
Of excited Kirsten. And I just like brain dumped all of this stuff into my computer to just get it out of my head. And then my husband came home and I was like, I need to tell you something. I want to completely turn our life 100% upside down. So this is depending on who I'm telling this story to. Sometimes I don't tell them this part, but I filled a water bottle up with wine. And we went on a walk with the dog and I proceeded to tell him all my ideas while just getting progressively more drunk.
The ideas got better and better.
They did. Because I was like, I don't know, this is just crazy. So let's make it more crazy.
I'm sure there's a lot of people listening can.
Yeah, I know, right? So then that was in the summer of 2014. And it just kind of started this domino effect of like starting to think through this idea more, meet with our small business development center. I went and talked to a number of other kitchenware store owners in the region to really figure out, I mean, South Dakota has less than 1 million people that live in the entire state. So when I say like talk to other kitchenware owners, it was Minnesota, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming. Like I did like a whole tour of the region to try to talk to people about it. And this idea slowly progressed. I put in like, I don't even remember, it was like a month or 2 month notice to my job that like, I'm going to leave. And even if this idea of this kitchenware store doesn't pan out, I know this isn't the place where I should be anymore. And so
that's a big leap.
It was. And I come from a family, my dad is a nurse and my mom is a teacher, and like so like very like entrepreneurship, owning a small business was not something that was ever kind of presented as an option.
That wasn't a pathway in your family.
No. And so I think that was the scariest part of this entire thing, was literally telling my parents that I wanted to open this business.
Was this more wine than walking down the street? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Right.
So anyway, ended up following that path, and I opened, it's called the Carrot Seed Kitchen Company, or the Carrot Seed, it's just kind of what we call it for short, in June of 2015. And have done a variety of things from there on out, but that is how the Carrot Seed started.
Where did the name Carrot Seed come from?
Yeah, so
I love the name. It's beautiful.
So it's actually from a children's book written by Ruth Krause. Yep. And I went on to Minneapolis and I met with it was like the trip to decide whether I wanted to do this or not do this. And we met with, I met with 2 different kitchenware store owners in the Minneapolis area. But on the way there, I was trying to think, what the heck would I name this? And we stopped at this place called Hunt and Gather, which is kind of this vintage, cool looking store.
Yeah.
And they had these, one of the things in there was like these postcards, flashcards that had quotes printed on it. And I'm very much the universe will give me what is meant for me, you know? And so I was looking at these cards, and the 3 cards said, you should quit your job. The next one said, like, don't give up on your dreams. And the next one said, you know, something else that just
Really?
like, felt like exactly.
You should quit your job.
Like literally, it's
Nice.
like, you should quit your day job. I have them at home. I bought them, of course.
Wow.
But anyway, I read these 3 postcard things, and then I turned the corner, and there's this little kid's book called The Carrot Seed. And it's about this little boy who plants a seed, and his mom is like, you know, you're wasting your time. His dad says, oh, don't bother watering it. His brother said the same thing. He ends up growing this carrot that's big enough to fill up an entire wheelbarrow. And it just felt like it was the right thing at the right time, but it also isn't a very accurate, I feel like, description of my journey. Everyone has been so very supportive that like no one has ever said, don't bother.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, all these like sort of different points in time in which there was something inspirational around you. Now, from the time period of listening to these 3 people on stage where you totally lived and zoned out on passion setting to opening up the Carrot Seed, how much time progressed from there?
It was like 1 year.
1 year.
Yep. And so it was about 6 months from hearing them to being done with my job in December, because semester change, it was the easiest time to do it. And then from December to June, I just worked on getting that business going.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What did you know, out of curiosity, because you didn't have, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, for instance, might come from an entrepreneurial family, or they know someone that started a business. How did you, in essence, structure your own support system to kind of figure it out? Did you just read a lot of stuff, or what did you do?
Yeah, I think talking to other business owners was extremely helpful. And I was invited to this group we called it our masterminds group. It was something that I think it's Thomas Jefferson. I think it was that kind of this concept of this masterminds group. And so it was, I think 5 other women-owned business owners in my community. And we met every single Thursday for coffee.
Oh, that's terrific.
And so we kind of called each other's board of directors, because you work on your own. You don't have anyone to share these challenges
you're pretty
with.
isolated.
Yeah, who understand how difficult it can be to run a small business. And so I think that was a pretty major support system with how to get this started. And just learning the ins and outs of a small business is, you know, trial and error. We have a lot of, we do have a small business development center in our community, which is very nice. There's only a couple in South Dakota. So that was a great resource to have. And, you know, reading on the internet, I literally read Operating a Business for Dummies, legit read that book. So that kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So the one of the things that really attracted me to talking with Kirsten here on the show was, so we did a study towards the end of 2024. Well, we do a survey of downtown revitalization professionals within the network. And one of the interesting findings was in a question about what were you doing before you went into this field of, you know, district revitalization. And it was completely surprising because there's typically a lot of sort of diversity of different backgrounds and experiences that draw people to this work. And what we found was, I think it was 15 to 20%. We'll put the exact details in the show notes, but so many people had come from small business ownership or entrepreneurial backgrounds. And I think that's fascinating, given the dynamic that so much of our work is intersecting with the work in sort of the resiliency of small businesses. Because if we don't have the small businesses, our work isn't really going to be, it certainly gets a lot tougher because that's truly what we're trying to accomplish. And so having that background is a fascinating thing to bring out now that you have this other hat in running, you know, the Brookings Downtown program. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what led into this transition of still having your business, but now I'm directing this downtown program.
Yeah. So I will definitely give you the cliff notes of the journey from the Carrot Seed opening to where I'm at now. So the Carrot Seed opened in 2015. In 2017, we bought the building next door and renovated.
So now
that.
you're in real estate.
Yes. So that was
Okay.
built in 1932. So we pretty much had to gut that entire building and start over fresh, and then cut a hole through the wall to move the things from the original Carrot Seed location into the new location.
Yeah.
And sealed the wall back up. So that was in 2017. In 2019, was approached by a business that was across the street that had gifts, cards, stationery,
Okay.
that they were looking at selling off that side of their business, the retail portion of it, and they were wondering if I'd be interested in it. And so I bought that portion of a business, reopened it under the name Honeycomb Gifts, and it was very much focused on fun gifts, just quirky items, just a fun shop to go in and
Yeah.
to see lots of
But very
things.
complimentary, it sounds like, to the Carrot Seed.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, because I
Okay.
could see from the Carrot Seed that was something that the community wanted, was that kind of store. So
Yeah.
that was in 2019. In 2020, what was it? 2021, a building came up for sale on our downtown that needed, major work. And so me and then two of my gal friends from that masterminds group
Yeah.
went in and bought that building together. That was built in 1918. So bought that building. That was, again, a total gut job, and had 3 apartments above and then a big commercial space on the main floor. So worked and did that. And then we find ourselves in 2022, where I had now 2 commercial buildings, 2 businesses, had a 2-year-old little girl.
Everything in twos.
Yeah, it was just, it was intense. And I was feeling that same friction
Okay.
that I felt when I was on campus, of like, what the work that I'm doing is not aligning with what I should be doing. Like, I could just feel something was wrong. I woke up every morning and just dreaded going into work, and the work is the business I own. That's
Yeah,
like not
wow.
a good feeling.
Yeah, sure.
So at that time, our downtown organization was basically just a committee under our Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And what I had found over the course of owning these businesses is that what I actually enjoy with business ownership is the building the community around the business and in the business, and doing work in the neighborhood to help plan events and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
which isn't a requirement to own a small business. Like the
Correct.
stuff that I enjoyed doing the most had nothing to do
Yeah,
with
the
my
pieces, those elements of the business.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went and talked to our city and was like, hey, I really think it's time for this downtown organization to get pulled out and become a standalone organization that is funded, that has a staff member. And they said, give it a shot. And so pulled together people, had meetings, had, planned it out over the course of, 4 months or so. Got our council on board, our city on board. They put some funding into it to make it go. And I was like, yes, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is the cup filling work that this 8 years, now 10 years
Yeah.
this summer of small business ownership has led to this point, that this is what I'm supposed to be doing, is this downtown work, because our downtown needs it. Our downtown wants it. It's important to our community. And it's like exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
So
Fascinating.
I don't even remember what the question was. But
No, you totally got it. It's like,
Okay.
what was the transition point?
Yes.
And again,
I should say, in that process, though, I sold that gift store. That was like the big thing, where in order to take on this downtown work, I can't do everything.
Something had to go.
And so I sold that gift store off to another retail store owner downtown, who now operates a bookstore.
Yeah.
Kind of adjusted into a bookstore, and it's wonderful. And so it was that friction point again of like, something feels off. I'm doing a lot of work, but it definitely isn't the right work. So
now that you're in this role, and you see small business ownership and what's happening in your community in the downtown from a slightly different lens, perhaps, what are the biggest challenges that you see from now this downtown lens about small business ownership within your community?
yeah.
And the challenges or difficult ways that small businesses are having to navigate the system?
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of my role is literally being the translator. Like I translate.
That's a good way to put it.
Like I translate what the community wants to the businesses. I translate what the city's doing to the businesses, and then translate the same thing from the business back. And so, you want your businesses to be open after 5 p.m. You want them to be open on Sundays, but I can see from their perspective, because I literally was in that perspective and currently still am, why they do the things the way that they do. But I can also see from why the community wants what they want, why the property owner, their landlord wants what they want, what the city wants what they want, So it's like you can step out and you can step into the shoes of so many different kind of parts of people, because I have been in and continue to be a little bit of every single one of those parts of people.
Exactly.
And I think it also helps that the businesses know that I am a business owner. And so there's just this trust that's built.
You got a little street cred.
Yeah. Like you are one of them. And so I think that helps a lot, where they know that I understand that I'm not just someone coming in and being like, oh, I know owning a small business is hard. I come up and I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Owning a small business is hard.
I've been there and I'm there.
I'm there. Yeah. Like your struggles with foot traffic right now are literally the exact same struggles that I am having. And so I think that helps a lot.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, if you given all those dynamics, what do you think is the sort of the biggest friction point between small business and the community or the public sector or what have you?
That's a really good question.
Regulatory? Is it dealing on building kinds of things? Or?
I wouldn't say that Brookings in South Dakota have a lot of regular things. That's not like a big thing. I think if I summed it up, I would say it's who's responsible for what.
Oh,
and so
okay. So roles.
Yeah, roles. And it's it's not the city's role to put wayfinding up to your specific business. That is your role.
Okay.
And so being able to explain that to a business without it feeling like the city's being ignoring them, because that's not what they're doing. They're just saying that's not what we should be doing with taxpayer dollars, is promoting your specific business, And then the same thing where it's for the downtown organization, it's my job to bring people downtown. It's your job to get them into your business.
Yeah.
And so being able to explain that, but also provide suggestions and things that I have tried that have worked, things I have seen in other businesses that have worked.
Hey everyone, short commercial break here to share with you the new exciting feature of Main Street America's shopmainstreet.org store. Launched in April under the new brand, Made on Main, each month we are starting to feature a Main Street producer, artisan, or brand creator with a short feature story and the ability to support them through their e-commerce storefront. So check it out, shopmainstreet.org, and now back to the show.
Welcome back from our commercial break. And we had a slight tech issue at hand, but we're back now. And so I want to go a little bit off script here, and because we're in an interesting time, and as such, I think it's important. It would be odd, frankly, if we didn't talk about what's happening with tariffs and the impact on small business. And given, again, you've got this interesting lens of being a small business owner as well as running a downtown organization. Could you talk from your perspective about how you're dealing with tariffs and what impact that has on your ability to work with vendors or shift or be more agile?
Yeah, so I think small businesses have the ability to be very scrappy and think on their feet and pivot really quickly, because the quantity of products that we need is so much less than the big box stores, that we can, if our regular vendor that we work through doesn't have this product, we can quickly and easily find someone else who can take take care of that for us, where the big box retailers have to plan so far ahead with what they're ordering because of the mass quantities and pallets and, you know, shipments of these things that they're getting. Where if I need Christmas towels, I have a plethora of people that I can order a variety of Christmas towels from, where the big box stores have to order, I mean, thousands upon thousands of one particular style of towel in order to fill those stores. And so when we're talking about tariffs, normally I have my Christmas orders planned out and ordered in January. They ship in July to get on the floor in late October. But this year, I haven't pre-ordered anything. I am waiting until we are closer to that July, August time to put these orders in, because I don't want to commit to something that ends up costing 2 to 3 times more by the time that we get there, because I need to make sure that my customer, the amount of product that I'm ordering is appropriate for where our sales are at that point, but also that it's from a brand and from a company that my customer can afford. You know,
so the uncertainty is just kind of insane at this point.
It really is. It's sketchy. In South Dakota, I mean, is in economic downturns, we aren't as affected as much as I would say like the big cities are and things like that. Like when we're talking about offices closing and remote workers and things, like the remote workers, a lot of them are moving to South Dakota. You know, we have wide open spaces and that sort of thing. And so, and even we just are a little more secluded.
Sure.
And so,
secluded is a good way to put it. Okay.
So like when you're talking about the economy and things, like it obviously does affect us, but it doesn't have, as I would say, as much of like this massive difference. Like I don't want to be very super negative or anything like that.
Of course.
But like when we're talking about this stuff, like businesses are probably going to be closing. I think it has a huge impact on our small businesses and the ability for them to thrive.
Are you hearing chatter by chance, or is this something that, again, because of a business owner, you're part of this network, and and now you have this hat is, you know, downtown revitalization. Is this concerning to other businesses? Or are you having conversations about, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm in a couple retailer groups on Facebook, and so that's been very interesting to see how other communities have been affected by the loss of foot traffic, by how much their sales are down year over year, where in our community, it hasn't been affected as much. And I would say that things that are affecting us aren't necessarily the economy, but it's just like other things.
Yeah, sure.
So we recently had a fire in our downtown that destroyed 2 buildings on like, you know, New Year's Eve. And so like that wasn't ideal and not necessarily something you have to spend a lot of time talking about, but I'd say that's what's affecting our
there are
downtown
other conditions
more than the economy. But as that stuff starts to, as we're a few months out now and the fire isn't as like, as near, you know, that I think it'll be hard for our community to separate what was an impact from the economy, what's an impact from the fire. And so like when we're talking about foot traffic and sales, but I will definitely say, I think the costs that we have are going to be rising and continuing to rise. And so how do we navigate that? And how do we deal with those costs in a way that is still fair to our customer?
Exactly.
Because I think the costs just keep getting passed down the line until it reaches the small business.
And then you've got to make a choice of what margin do I have left and what can my consumers
which is the benefit of being one of those big boxes, is that because you are ordering thousands upon thousands of like one particular product, you have much more negotiating power. Where I can't negotiate a shipping rate when I'm ordering 6 of one kind of towel. You know, like that's not a thing.
You're like, sorry.
So
So one of the other things in keeping with my going off script moments here that we talked about before we went sort of on air was around this sort of 2 typologies of retail, if we want to think about it that way. You have totally transactional, where I just need this product. I don't really care what it is or whatever. And then you have a lot about how we think about Main Street retail that's much more experiential. It's much more sort of customer service intensive. But I think given the sort of the times in which so much of our lives are in a virtual world, that there is a lot of conversation around being isolated and wanting to be connected with one another. And I think also realistically, where people that may not totally agree in certain ways come into a store because they have something in common. They like what you're offering. And I wonder how you think about the role of small business in creating community and bringing people together.
Yeah, so I think that, I mean, it's 100% what sets small businesses apart and what is going to allow us to continue to thrive and exist is really focusing on those experiences. So at the Carrot Seed, for example, we have done cookbook clubs in the past where we cook our way through a book. And so everybody comes together once a week for like 5 weeks, brings food that we share from the cookbook. We have a small kitchen in our back, and we used to host cooking classes, but they were a lot of work and a little stressful. So instead what we do is rent our kitchen out, and our multicultural center comes in once a month and cooks.
Awesome.
And they has a different person come and cook food from their culture once a month. And so that brings in so many different people who come in and experience this great thing. It's building community, even if it's not building community around the Carrot Seed, it's building community in the Carrot Seed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which then, and just between people who might not otherwise cross paths. And I think that is super important. When we're looking at the business, one thing that we have been focusing on this year is bringing in more of those experiences that require people to come back. So we invested in a big oil and vinegar like tank system.
Okay.
And one of our employees is interested in opening a zero waste store someday. And so we give her 2 shelves in the store that she has her own little micro business running out of there, refill products. And so that's something that as a refill product, you come back to get those things. You can't
like
refill something on the internet, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's where we are really kind of shifting and leaning towards is those things that bring people back because of the product, bring people back because of the experience. The can opener that you can get from us is the same can opener you can get from Amazon or Target or Walmart.
Sure.
But why people choose us is because we have Mandy Lyons, who works for us, and she is an absolute pleasure. Like it's because we have Lauren, who comes in and asks how your kids are doing. You know, like it's because the people we have working for us and the community that's built around our space.
That's awesome.
And you can see that in so many different businesses in our downtown. And when we have, I think investing in the experience is so important. And it's not just the people experience, it's the vibe of your business.
Yeah.
Like you can tell when a new business opens, and if they haven't invested in the feel of the space, you can tell that they aren't going to be as successful until that is something that's a priority to them.
That they actually make that connection.
That they make a place that people want to be, that has a personality. Like it's so important.
Yeah. I'm gonna end the show with a question.
I just want to keep talking forever.
This has been awesome. But end it in a different way. Okay. Consistent with how we've been doing this show thus far. Because again, you have this interesting lens as a downtown professional and a small business owner. I typically ask your advice for other small business owners, but I'm going to turn this around. And I'd love to hear your advice to our downtown colleagues out there about how they might want to approach their work with small businesses.
Yeah.
And now I've totally thrown you off.
Yeah. Well, I think when I'm thinking back to being in the role before I was in this downtown role, when I was just a small business owner and someone that was kind of in one of those more economic development capacities would approach me.
Okay.
Things that bothered me.
Oh, and this is great. Okay.
The things that would bother me is that,
these are the don't do's.
The don't do's.
Yes.
Yeah. That, and I feel like what I'm going to say is very conflicting. So sometimes people would just come into the business and expect that I am there and I am ready to have a conversation with them about something that's important.
Yes.
Like, this is my, I can't just come in and magically find you at your office at all hours of the day
Oh,
and
that's
expect to have a
fascinating.
15-minute conversation with you.
Yes.
Like, I have customers. Like, I don't
Yes.
feel comfortable talking about whatever this thing is.
How are your sales doing?
Yeah, like it was so bothersome. But then
Yeah.
on the flip side, like, sometimes we get emails where like, hey, could you come talk to this class? It's at, like at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. And it's like, no, I'm working. So like, I don't know. It's just being mindful of what works for a small business. And it's different for every single small business.
Sure.
And it's different for what part of their journey they're on. When they are first starting, they are going to be 100% in that business, 150% in that business. They are going to be there all hours of the day. And so giving them a heads up that you'll be stopping by, and knowing that you will have to have that conversation probably in their business while their customers are there, and just being mindful about who's around, what you're asking, is it appropriate for the time? But then when they're further on in their journey, expecting them to be in their business 100% of the time is it just makes it feel like you don't understand my business. You don't understand that, like, I have staff full time that manage that business now. And so like the work that I am doing is outside of those four walls at this point.
Exactly.
And so and what it comes down to is building that relationship with that business owner to know what part of that journey they're on.
Yeah.
And just understanding that there is a journey, I think is
Yeah.
important.
And sort of like a one size doesn't fit all.
No.
And so you get to treat them as truly as individuals,
Yeah.
and not as like this sort of monolithic group of small
Yeah.
business owners.
And so going back to one of the questions that you had asked earlier about being a translator between, I think that too is with this question, where talking to this person, I know that a text is better. This person, an email's better. This person is a stop in and talk in person. And here's the
Okay.
time that they're open. And I think that's because I have been operating side by side with these people for so long that I understand their personalities and
Yeah.
what works best for them. And so it just goes to show the importance of like just building those relationships and asking some of those hard questions, where it's not just, how's it going? Because everyone asks that question. It's like it's asking that question in the appropriate time, and then actually listening to the answer and caring about what it is.
Have
that
some
they say.
purpose. It
Yeah.
sounds like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, Kirsten, thank you so much
Yeah.
for being on this show.
Yeah.
And I love the work that you're doing. And I really just appreciate all the insights you've brought to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. If you ever want to do it again, I think I could do this 5 more times.
We're going to have a permanent
so fun.
show between the two of us.
So,
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with my guest, Kirsten Gjesdal, owner of the Carrot Seed Kitchen Company and executive director of Downtown Brookings. I can't thank her enough for taking the time away from the conference to join the show and share her perspective, but also, frankly, just some really powerful and insightful lessons for both directors of revitalization programs and similarly for small business owners seeking to get engaged in these efforts. Now, interestingly, this show came about from some of our research work at Main Street America that showed that the largest share of previous occupations or jobs prior to coming on board and leading a district revitalization effort were actually former and or current business owners. Now, I think it's only appropriate that we shared this tremendous insight and unique perspective that this background contributes to then managing a broad and collaborative Main Street effort. So thank you so much, Kirsten. You were wonderful. And I know people took a lot away from the podcast. So that's going to do it for the show. And as always, if you're a business owner, and likewise to my place professional colleagues out there, I hope this episode has provided plenty of new insights, solutions, and inspiration. And as consumers, please continue to support your local small businesses and tell their stories. They're so important to our local and national economies. And most importantly, they promote and provide quality of living to the places we all call home. Just a quick reminder to check out our growing library of podcast recordings and other related films on our Main Street America YouTube channel. Please rate and review us. And as always, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends, family, pets, neighbors and colleagues so you all can catch the next episode. Looking forward to our next chat. Thanks for listening and all the support.